What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. We're actually just over a bit of a week away from this year's NBA draft, so today we'll be doing our fourth mock draft of the year, second mock draft post-draft lottery. But since the last time I've done one of these videos, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of things coming out in the news about certain teams targeting different players now. So we'll be breaking all of that down today. Just before we do get into the actual picks and previews and predictions, if you guys do enjoy what you see today, make sure to smash that thumbs up button. And please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to push for 10,000 subscribers. But anyways, let's get right into it. With the first pick in the draft is, of course, the Detroit Pistons. And I'm going no surprises here. Cade Cunningham, the 6'8" guard out of Oklahoma State. Last year averaged 20.1 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 3.5 assists on top of a ton of individual accolades. Fourth freshman ever to win Big 12 Player of the Year, won College Basketball Freshman of the Year, and was a consensus All-American. What I really like about Cade Cunningham is he's sort of different from the stereotypical point guards that we see really in this day and age and historically over the past couple of years in the upper ends of the draft. Because, you know, most of those point guards are really based on their flashy dribble moves and athleticism, but that's not necessarily Cade Cunningham, who's more based on that size and his basketball IQ. You're talking about a guy who's got a ton of versatility two ways, can guard 3 to 4 positions on the defensive side of the ball, and then offensively, on top of being a tremendous scorer with that length, is also a really good rebounder for the position, and with the length as well, can see around defenders and is actually a fantastic facilitator and passer of the basketball. So Cade Cunningham, I don't expect to fall out of the number 1 position, so that's who we're going to be taking here. Cade Cunningham and draft player. All right. With the next pick, Houston Rockets, I'm going to be going with Jalen Green. Now, there's been a lot of talk, about how it could be either Jalen Green or Evan Mobley. And I think there's pros and cons to being able to really justify taking either one of these players in this position. But since the Houston Rockets, from what I've heard in the news, are leaning towards Jalen Green, that's who we're going to be going with in this draft. The 6'6" guard played last year in the G League, averaged 17.9 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, 2.8 assists, tacked on 1.5 steals. What's really nice about Jalen Green is he does one thing really, really well, and he's the best pure scorer in the draft. Maybe not necessarily the best shooter. I would give that to a guy like Corey Kissberg, but you're looking at a guy who can score from 3 levels, and in terms of that, is definitely the best player in the draft. Best pure scorer for sure. He's got size with a frame that's sort of filling out, adding more muscle for sure. Explosive, tremendously athletic, and he's got really, really good body control when you're talking about how he scores around the rim. But what I find the most impressive about Jalen Green is actually how he only needs limited space. He's got a lightning quick release and can hit contested shots in like literally the snap of a finger. He's also a good effort player, will give you some on defense as well. So a bit of two ways in terms of that. Solid perimeter defender, also can pressure ball handlers. So that's just an added bonus. The only thing about Jalen Green, he's got to be able to expand his game besides just being a scorer. He needs something else, and I think that's definitely the biggest question around him. But give it time. It's super impressive how developed he is as a scorer already. So, yeah, Jalen Green at the number 2 position. All right, so with the third pick, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I've always sort of said whether it's Green or Mobley sliding down from 2 to 3, I think in some order it's going to be those two guys going. So that being said, Evan Mobley at number 3, the 7-foot power forward center out of USC. Last year averaged 16.4 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and 2.9 blocks. Evan Mobley's probably the best two-way player in the draft, and they call him a generational talent because of that. He's a natural rim protector with a tremendous jumping ability and also a great inside player who can attack you from, even outside a little bit, although he's a tad inconsistent. And then obviously the other big thing that Evan Mobley gets you is he's the only impact center that you get right at the top of the draft. And definitely developed in terms of that. And, combine that with all of his athleticism, I think he's going to develop more than a guy like James Wiseman, who went number 2 last year. And I think that's why some people would be a little bit hesitant to pick another center this high in the draft. But yeah, Evan Mobley does a lot of things really, really well. And I love that ability to be a two-way player. So I'm taking Evan Mobley here. Next up is my Toronto Raptors. Of course, if you've watched the channel, you'll know that I am a Toronto Raptors fan, and I've done a lot of coverage on this pick. And I think if you're the Raptors, this is the first time where you do have a little bit of options. Jalen Suggs is obviously the most likely guy, but, I've seen Scotty Barnes, Jonathan Kuminga sort of sneak up into that number 4 position. I am going to stick with Jalen Suggs, and I'll explain why in just a second, but he's a 6'4" point guard out of Gonzaga. Last year averaged 14.4 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 1.9 steals. I think, Jalen Suggs really works for the Raptors, whether you re-sign Kyle Lowry or not, because A, he's basically a Kyle Lowry 2.0 when you look at a lot of really, really similar traits. But also, he's exactly what you want in a point guard. He's a great leader, got tools to be a two-way impact player, tremendous athleticism, a guy who can definitely dunk and give you all of that type of stuff on offense. Great facilitator of the basketball, who's very, very decisive. Reads the game well overall, elusive with the ball. So offensively, he's definitely got it. And then he gives you a lot of those small things on defense. I talked about the 1.9 steals per game, but can definitely fill up the stat sheet on defense, but does a lot of the small things well, as well. Pressures, ball handlers for sure. And I think just having that two-way guard who's great at moving off ball really gives you sort of that complete package. And I think he's really one of the more NBA ready guys in my opinion. So I think definitely a plus for the Raptors in terms of that. So yeah, I really, really like Jalen Suggs, the way that he would fit into the Raptors system. Jalen Suggs, draft player. There we go. Number 5 is a bit in the air because I think honestly it's between Scotty Barnes, Jonathan Kuminga. I think this is too early for a guy like Keon Johnson or any of those type of guys. But I think you're looking at 2 really, really similar players. 2 guys who, are both very impactful. I think have traits that are developed already. But 2 guys who are probably a bit more, on the raw side of their talent. I like Scotty Barnes. I think if anybody in the early part of the draft actually falls, it's going to be Jonathan Kuminga. And there's a lot to like about Scotty Barnes. Small forward out of Florida State last year, 10.3 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4.1 assists. And the best way I would describe Scotty Barnes is versatile and powerful. He's got strength and speed that allows him to attack the rim really like almost nobody else in the class. Handles the ball well, is a fairly good passer for his position at the 3. And I really do think he's one of the more intriguing prospects in the draft. He plays with tremendous energy. The only thing is, though, is he's very inconsistent on the offensive side of the ball. 27.5% last year from 3, 62% last year from the free throw line, and about 50% last year from the field. But, again, he's a great two-way player, tremendous athleticism. There's a lot to like in Scotty Barnes. But again, really starting number 5, you're looking at some really, really raw prospects. So it's just who do you want to take a stab at? I would take the stab at Scotty Barnes. So that's who we're going with in the draft. Scotty Barnes, draft player. Number 6, I do like Kuminga here. I think 7 is sort of where it starts to get a little jumbled up. Kuminga still gives you a lot. 6'8", small forward, power forward, played last year in the G League alongside Jalen Green, 15.8 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. Another extreme athlete in this class who's nearly unstoppable around the rim, can finish through traffic, especially with both hands. He does have a bit of range that can extend out to the perimeter, but he's pretty inconsistent, can pass out of drives on defense, has great timing with those block shots, gives you a little bit of defensive versatility as well. Again, I think he's just a raw player. I think he's got to add a little bit in terms of muscle and onto his frame. But again, if you're OKC getting Jonathan Kuminga at 6, I mean, I'm not complaining at all. He's definitely got potential to be one of the better guys out of this draft class, no doubt about it. So we will take Jonathan Kuminga. There he is right there. And boom. Number 7 is an interesting pick because I think number 7 is where it starts to get a little bit jumbled up. I've seen a ton of different, especially guards here for Golden State. I've seen sort of flip-flopping with DaVon Mitchell, Keon Johnson, a whole bunch of different guys. I'm going to go with DaVon Mitchell, 6'2" point guard out of Baylor. Last year, 14 points per game, 5.5 assists, 2.7 rebounds, 1.9 steals. And I think if you look at anybody in this draft class who probably did the most for this draft stock coming into the year, it's DaVon Mitchell, and one of the most NBA-ready draft prospects, no doubt about it. He's an efficient scorer, had the third highest effective field goal and true shooting percentage among Power 5 guards last year. He's very quick, can beat ball handlers, can beat defenders one-on-one, and he's one of the smartest players in this draft. He was Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He has good hands, can force turnovers, so definitely a two-way player, and he's very, very efficient at everything that he does. I think Golden State would be a great fit for him. I know, you look at Curry, you look at Thompson, and you think, well, how's DaVon Mitchell going to fit in there? But I don't really think that's a worry at all. This is definitely a guy who would fit their scheme, and is definitely an NBA-ready guy if the Warriors are going to try to, put him off the bench and then make another shot and push in the Western Conference. So I really, really like DaVon Mitchell to Golden State. Next up is the Orlando Magic. I like Keon Johnson. He's my favorite player in the draft. 6'5" shooting guard, small forward out of Tennessee. Last year, 11.3 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists. He does have some flaws, especially offensively. He's a very raw scorer, raw talent overall, but tremendous athleticism. He had the best vertical in the NBA draft combine, and I would say a smaller version of like a Jalen Brown type guy. Great scorer off dribbles, great in motion plays, good playmaker, solid rebounder for his size, fairly active defender as well. Really a complete player, high energy player, definitely a fan favorite type of guy for whatever fan base he ends up going to. But I guarantee Orlando Magic fans would be very happy with this pick. Gives you some positional eligibility. And yeah, just overall, if he can sort of clean up his shooting percentages a little bit and sort of just figure that out, he is a bit of a project on offense. I think you're talking about really one of the players with the top ceilings in this draft. So, you're picking a guy who maybe you're selecting 8th in the draft with, top 3 potential in my opinion. So this would be a really, really nice pick at number 8. Keon Johnson, where is this man? And there's Keon Johnson. All right, perfect. So number 9 is another interesting spot in the draft because I think 9 through 11 are 3 teams who could potentially be looking at small forward selections. And there's a lot of small forwards in this draft. Franz Wagner is a possibility. Jalen Johnson's a possibility. But for the Sacramento Kings in the specific position, I like Corey Kissberg. 6'7", 220 pound forward out of Gonzaga last year. 18.6 points per game, 5 rebounds, 1.8 assists. 53% from the field, 44% from 3, 88% from the free throw line. And there's nothing I can say about this kid besides he is a tremendous shooter. And I talked about him a little bit when we were breaking down Jalen Green, but I genuinely believe this is the best shooter in the draft. Not the best pure scorer, not the best offensive player in the draft, but the best shooter, no doubt about it. He's also a mature player who's played 4 years in college. So his game is really, really developed. He's a guy who is a great team chemistry sort of player, but in terms of him, again, can score anywhere from the court, has tremendous range, is a strong ball handler who's got a bit of strength as well, can finish around the rim. He knows how to win for sure, uses that size well, is especially tough to stop in transition. And I think when you look at, forwards, this is one of the most developed guys in the entire draft. A lot of people are saying a bit lower of a ceiling than a guy like Franz Wagner. But I think Corey Kispert is just an absolutely phenomenal player. So this is who I would pick at number 9. Where's Corey Kispert? There we go. And with the number 10 pick, the final pick that we are going to be doing in this video, I like Franz Wagner. My Michigan man last year averaged 12.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and 3 assists. Franz Wagner is a little bit of a project. There's no doubt about it. But the difference that I saw in Franz Wagner from year 1 at Michigan to, this past year at Michigan is just absolutely insane. He's a tremendous wing player with great athleticism, tremendous on the offensive side of the ball. Can rebound fairly well, can distribute the ball fairly well. But yeah, his big thing is going to be a tremendous wing player. Needs to get a little bit more consistent in terms of his shooting, but he can also attack the basket. Really great scorer from all 3 levels, I want to say. Just inconsistent at times, but he did get better in the later part of this season. And in terms of defense, I always said that Franz Wagner, for his age, because he came out from overseas, so, even though he's played a couple of years in college, he's still on the younger side. For his age, he was just remarkably developed on the defensive side of the ball. Super active, can get you blocks, can get you steals. He's versatile, can guard multiple positions. So Franz Wagner is a bit of a project. There's no doubt about it. That's coming from a Michigan Wolverines fan myself. But you'd be silly to not think that Franz Wagner has some of the upper talent in this entire draft class. So Franz Wagner is going to be the way that we're ending out this mock draft. So here we go. There's my top 10. If you guys did enjoy today's video, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts, comments, predictions on anything that I talked about today. How do you think I did in terms of picking my top 10 mock draft? I want to hear it. If you guys did enjoy today's video, though, make sure to let me know by smashing that thumbs up button, subscribing to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.